Today I'm bringing an interesting topic, which is what is the far right and how it's currently being used by the media in order to manipulate the reader. For a while, I've been wanting to talk about this subject, but I felt that I didn't have enough information or I didn't have my ideas put together how to address this topic. As I've been in my changes in politics and being able to understand multiple things and getting a different perspective, I noticed what we thought of what media used to be, it's no longer the case. And it's happening all across the board. You can see most people picking sides. I would say probably most of the media tends to lean left, but most of the media used to be the liberal media, the traditional center left that was pro civil right, pro free speech, limited government, which is the part that I always was in agreement with the libertarians, which I myself consider one, a libertarian. I think I've noticed the more often that I see one of the first times I paid attention to is, I don't know if you guys recall when the prime minister from Italy, she was quoted to be a far right candidate, and I was like, Italy, far right, okay. I'm pretty sure when anybody hears far right Italy, they're gonna think to Mussolini. They're not gonna think of somebody who's against the current agenda with immigration. But that is currently how the media has changed and manipulated the word. The traditional far right came along after the French Revolution between the right and the left, and we have been using those terms for a while. Then in the early 1900s, with the rise of Mussolini, Hitler, the far right was more representative to those movements that were anti-democratic, ultranationalist, and it was an extreme of the right. But what I've noticed nowadays, they're still expecting people to believe the far right as Hitler, Mussolini, or people who have those ideals, and they're throwing that label on people who are not that. And I believe that is extremely dirty and very manipulative. Because on the same context, when the same news media, they cover a person who should be a far left, I'm going to use an example. Spain has a party that's called the Socialist Party. To anyone that's in the center, a socialist is far left. A communist, it is further than that, but it's still considered far left. And how I see it is, you got the center, you got the liberals, you got the traditional Democrats, then you got the progressive, then you got the socialists, then you have the Democrats. On the right side, I believe you have, even though it's not necessarily like that, because I believe the aspects should be different, because liberals are more pro individual freedom, same as libertarian, but libertarians and liberals disagree on the economic policy. And I think it is important for words, whenever they have a meaning, to have a defined meaning. And if you toss anyone that's pro or legal immigration to have rules and regulation around it, far right, you're lying to the people that are reading your articles. You're not being honest to the people that are reading those articles. And it have always bugged me anytime I hear somebody using that term. Because on the same token, look it up. Look it up yourself. Go on Google and type far left candidate United States. There's actual people in the US that believe socialism works, and they're not going to be called far right. But then you have people who are pro having a better structure in the immigration policy, and those people are immediately labeled far right. And again, this is one of the disagreements that I'm having with the current status of the left. Why do we have laws? We have laws to set a structure how the country is going to be governed. This is nothing new. Obama was not pro illegal immigration. I'm going to show you a video, Obama talking about this.
This is not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. you are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship. So that it's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it, but over time, you give people an opportunity. Now, it only works, though, if you do all the pieces. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration, but they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take.
None of the stuff that Obama is suggesting on that video, it's radical. None of the things that Obama is suggesting, it's crazy either. This is how everything was until people went crazy, in my opinion. I think people care more about sticking to their party than sticking to their principles. I'm trying to stick to my principles. I voted for that Obama, even though I was young, but that's the idea of the Obama that many people voted in. This is not the same current Democratic Party. As much as Obama can speak on behalf of Kamala Harris and pretend that it's all good and dandy, it is not the same party. And bringing on the example with Spain, you can look up any article from the BBC, CNN, NPR talking about the current president of Spain. He's the president of the Socialist Workers' Party, a far left candidate, where the people in Spain, anyone that makes over 60K, they pay over 50% in taxes. And I'm going to show you the data as you can see it right now. There's no reasonable. The big difference between the far right and the far left is both extremes are authoritarians. Whenever you have a politician or an ideology that wants you to force a certain way that is unreasonable, that's when you start having issues. Because, for example, the reasonable Democrat, they will believe on a bigger social or a welfare state. They believe in a bigger welfare state versus the libertarians. They don't believe in that as much. They believe a government should have a limited job, and they should not. And their main goal of the government is to make sure citizens do not abuse each other during business deals, criminal, and other situations. And of course, protecting the land, because there's no way you can privatize that. And all those far candidates, none of the media calls them far left when they are far left. And that is what bothers me the most, because I had a friend of mine, we were talking about this, and he was like, oh yeah, Giorgia Meloni, the prime minister, because he's a dual citizen, he has Italian citizenship. He's like, oh yeah, Giorgia Meloni, she's a far right. And I was like, please, I asked this question honestly, wanting to know an answer. Please tell me, how is she far left? I'm sorry, far right. I don't know. Let me see. I'm like, dude, if there's any point that you're trying to make an argument and you're just repeating the talking point from any pundit that you follow, and you're not able to articulate it while sounding reasonable and being able to back and forth, understand what the other person is saying, actually analyze it, don't be an ideologue, then you have an opinion. And I think most people are just repeating whatever they hear. And whenever they hear the word far right, they get on the freaking boat and they believe the whole thing. And staying on point, it is a manipulative thing. It is a manipulative thing. And why for example, personally, why I'm so against socialists, I'm also against a fascist. Of course I am. Anyone that's trying to enforce a certain way, you can see simple that a liberal cannot live in a socialist country because they will be in jail for exercising their free speech. You cannot have that neither on a fascist dictatorship nor on a socialist dictatorship like you have in Cuba. When you speak about anything, and there's many things that people don't understand how deep socialist things go. Like, for example, we have phrases, or there was a phrase that we had as we were growing up that was, we will be like Che Guevara. And as a kid, you're not understanding what you're saying. And then as you grow up, you realize he hated gays, he hated black people, he was one of the worst pieces of shit in the world. And I grew up saying that we will be like him. That's how brainwashing and propaganda works from the socialist government. They take control of everything. That way, they try to create the perfect human. That's why the socialist Soviet Union failed. That's why Cuba has been a failed country. That's why Venezuela has been a failed country as well since the socialists took over. And going back on point again, the term far right, whenever you hear it, think, I'm trying to be manipulated. The same way when I hear a Republican calling a center-left Democrat, calling them a communist, I'm like, no, hold on a second. You can say what you're saying is a socialist idea. I think progressives, they're very close in many ideas with socialists, even though their intentions are good. But it's not only the intentions, it's also the results of their decisions. And there's people that have lived, and through people who had those intentions, I'm sorry, I'm going to question those beliefs. So staying on topic is, we have to be able to find people who give you information, and they tend to actually be honest. And they're not trying to manipulate you, because as soon as you put a headline, which I'm going to show you here, many that I've seen, they're trying to create a narrative, a subconscious narrative, because they know as soon as you hear the word far right, you're going to think ultranationalist, authoritarian, fascist, Hitler, Mussolini, and therefore you already have those feelings before you even read the person. And therefore you associate all those feelings that you have toward that other person that you have no information about. Are there socialists and fascists out there? Of course. But the term is being used more by the left as calling anyone on the right that's pro-legal immigration, like Obama was speaking just a second ago. They're calling anyone that wants to have rules and regulation about immigration far right. So you can be deceived and manipulated. But as I always say with these videos, I'm not planning to, I don't want you to change your mind. I'm hoping that you're open to the ideas. At the end, we're all adults. Make your own decisions.